Stress is a part of life, and believe it or not, it's actually not an inherently negative thing. While stress is a completely normal response to things going on in the world around us, too much of it for too long can negatively affect our mental and physical health. But you probably already know that. I'm sure that's part of why you're here today. So, what do? We do our best to reduce stress where we can and take care of ourselves to offset what we can't. But in our efforts to reduce and manage stress, we often don't realize that we are doing things that invite that stress right into our brains and bodies. We're going to talk about one of those things today, which is consuming content. Hello and welcome to Becoming Burnout Proof, the podcast designed to help women entrepreneurs manage their stress and become totally burnout proof. I'm your host, Meg. I am a certified stress management specialist and master marketer, and I'm thinking this whole stop stressing yourself out idea could potentially be an entire series, to be honest. Sometimes we just do not set ourselves up for success in that regard, but today's episode is inspired by a conversation I had last week when I went to get my hair cut, and my hairstylist pointed out that, in her words, America is giving Handmaid's Tale vibes. I told her I wouldn't know because I haven't watched it. She started to describe some parallels she was seeing on, told me, oh, you have to watch it. It's so good. So listen, okay, disclaimer. I love Netflix. I'm not one of those people who frowns upon a good series binge every once in a while. We have multiple movie nights a week at our house, but one thing I know about myself with 100% certainty is that I am very easily affected by the media I consume. If I watch or read something disturbing, it will stay with me for weeks. Real or fiction, it doesn't matter. I will lose sleep. So everything I'm talking about in this episode is spoken from my experience. If things don't affect you that way, it's fine, right? Take it, leave it. Take what you want from this episode, leave what you don't. But there is some science behind the things I'm sharing today, okay? So I told my stylist there are more than enough things happening in real life, in the real world to feel anxious about. I don't need my entertainment to add to that. I want to just have fun, right? Did you know that when you are watching a scary movie, for example, there are parts of your brain that cannot tell the difference between a real threat or a perceived one? So when you see a woman being chased by an axe murderer on the screen, your eyes and your ears zip that information up to the amygdala. That's the part of your brain responsible for fear and anger. Our girl Amy G, there's a mnemonic that has stuck with me for a really long time. Amy G Dalla is scared and angry. That's how I remember that part of the brain. Our girl Amy G does her best, but she literally cannot tell that it is not us who is about to be unalived. I am not getting chased. It's not actually happening to me. Amy has no idea, right? She sends that distress signal that triggers the fight or flight response in the hypothalamus. This is when the adrenaline kicks in, your cortisol spikes, which is the stress hormone, your heart beats faster, you start to sweat. There's a whole cascade of amazing changes that happen in our body designed to help us overcome whatever threat we are facing. So eventually, when the danger, either real or perceived, has passed, cortisol levels come down and the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in to calm things down. Even after things calm down, though, those cortisol spikes during the day can mess with your sleep later on at night. So this is not to say that you should never watch a scary movie or an intense series. In fact, when I was researching for this episode, I found a study that suggests that for people who enjoy horror movies, they might get a dopamine boost similar to what you would expect from aerobic exercise. I love that for you if that's you, but it's a nope from me. True crime girlies, I love you, and also I just don't get it. We do love a movie with a good resolution. From an adventure movie, for example, we get the dopamine rush at the end when everything works out for our hero. Movies aside, what happens when we're viewing maybe less intense but more frequent stress-inducing content? Not to be a downer, but the unprecedented times we've been living through are not easy on the mind. There are global stressors right now occurring that have most of us living with a higher baseline level of stress in general. Frequently consuming media that elicits a stress response can amplify that and make it worse. If you find yourself scrolling and getting sucked into the doom and gloom, remember that consuming content online does not equal being informed. I've talked about this on the show before, specifically in episodes with really long titles, which I'm going to tell you now. Social media boundaries and digital burnout, and another episode, protecting your mental health when scary things are happening in the world. I'll link to those in the show notes. But just remember, you get to choose when and how you want to be informed. If your primary goal for social media is to be entertained, make sure that entertainment leaves you feeling happier when you're done, not more anxious. The official definition for the term doom scrolling is when we continue to view content even when we know it's negatively affecting our mental state. It usually starts out innocently enough. You're likely looking something up because you need information. Then the dopamine hijacking algorithm pops in and you fall into a click hole full of new things to feel anxious about. I haven't touched on books yet in this episode, but I jumped on the romantasy train for a while until I realized how much immersing myself in worlds where war and violence were major plot points was affecting my mood. I'm saying this with zero judgment. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you love the shadow daddies, more power to you, okay? I'm just speaking from my own experience. Intentionally immersing myself in depressing novels was bringing me way down. There's a strong scientific correlation between consuming negative content and increased feelings of distress. So, let's round this out. How do we stop stressing ourselves out by consuming stress-inducing content? It can help to get into the habit of paying attention to how the content you're consuming makes you feel. Do you feel uplifted or heavier after a show, chapter, or scrolling session? You can try setting timers to prompt these check-ins. Take a break and try out a new genre. See how other types of content make you feel. I know this seems obvious, but I think especially in the book world, if you consider yourself an avid reader like I do, we sometimes settle on a genre and don't deviate because we know what we like, right? But give it a try. Do the same thing. Pay attention to how consuming certain types of content makes you feel. I wasn't planning to discuss this next topic in today's episode, but it just came to mind, so we're going to roll with it and we're going to talk about it. For those of us running businesses, how do we apply this idea of uplifting content to the content we're creating in an effort to grow our audience? Talk to anyone in marketing and they'll tell you to emphasize your ideal client's pain points. What big problems do they want or even need to solve? While this is true, the way we highlight those pain points is important. Marketing messaging and strategies that do not align with our personal values is just not acceptable, okay? So, for example, this came up at a networking event I was at last weekend. I was talking with a bookkeeper who had one of her posts go viral and she kind of regretted it. The post was sharing an experience about one of her clients who was trying to manage bookkeeping on their own and ended up owing, I can't remember the exact amount, it was like thousands and thousands of dollars to the IRS due to bookkeeping mistakes. She obviously kept the person's name out of it. She wasn't throwing anyone under the bus. She got tons of engagement on the post and even got clients out of it, but she did not want to continue using fear-based marketing to bring in clients. She didn't want to create feelings of anxiety or desperation in order to persuade people to work with her because that is not at all what she's about. We talked about how to address pain points, but reverse the messaging to highlight the positive outcome they desire rather than dwelling on the fear of not taking action. So in her case, it shifted from "don't let this happen to you" to "what if you could move into tax season with 100% peace of mind," right? As marketers, which if you are running a business, you are a marketer, we do need to understand pain points 100%, but you don't need to drive the negative points home. Empathize with the discomfort, but double down on the light at the end of the tunnel with the solution that you provide. Leave them feeling uplifted by you, not feeling like they're doomed to suffer without you. This ended up feeling like kind of a random mishmash of topics today, but I hope you've taken away something from it that will help you as you move forward in this crazy world and do the work that we need to make it a better place. I hope that you're able to create habits that allow you to check in with yourself and understand how the things you're bringing into your mind and body are making you feel, because that is going to reduce your stress and help you become totally burnout proof. That's all I've got for you today. Be well and be kind, and I will talk to you again soon.